I'm with you. I can't wait to see him play. Last team that we're talking about here is the Arizona Cardinals. I have them missing the playoffs, but I have them going 7-10 this year. You have them missing the playoffs, going 5-12. What's the thought process of this team? A lot of people are buying into where the Cardinals are going, but 5-12, it feels like you believe that they're still a little bit of ways away from truly competing. What do you think about the Cardinals, though? And let's dig into some offensive and defensive MVPs.
Yeah, I could absolutely see them on a level closer to 7 or 8 wins. I have nothing against that at all. I think sometimes in exercises like this, again, there's certain teams, especially the ones that finish in last fall, prey to the schedule. There's two things for me. One, they're just playing a brutal division. 6 games against this set of teams is wild. It's a brutal division. And two, again, the lowest graded defense in football I'm a little worried about. And their first-round pick, Darius Robinson, is already slated to miss at least the first 4 games with an injury. So it's their defense. I don't question their offense, honestly. I think their offense is going to keep them in a lot of games. I could see them being one of those teams that goes 5-12 or 6-11, and they just lose a bunch of one-score games. You just look at up and down the Cardinals' schedule, and you're like, man, they lost every game on the schedule by 4 points. Like, I could see that, absolutely, because their offense, this is a dynamic offense. Kyler Murray, James Conner, Trey Benson, Trey McBride, Marvin Harrison Jr., Michael Wilson, Greg Dortch. Yep. They've got weapons left and right. And the biggest thing, and this is why he's my offensive MVP, Kyler Murray, look, not only is he talented, we know he's talented, we know he's a dual threat. I saw a play one time where the time to throw was 20 seconds because he was running around so much and eventually scored a touchdown on it. I mean, the arm talent, the athleticism, the rushing ability, even at his size. I mean, Kyler Murray's got everything. He's got everything that made him the number 1 overall pick, right? And the impact for him being back. Look, the Cardinals last season, weeks 1 through 9 when he was out, they were tied for 29th in offensive grade, okay? When he got back the second half of the year, they were 10th. 10th in offense grade. They were a top 10 offense, Trevor. So, and that's without Marvin Harrison Jr. getting in there yet. And I think Trey Benson, I know he's a guy you love out of Florida State. I think that's a great compliment to James Conner. James Conner, kind of that grinding power runner, and Trey Benson with the speed. And then you have the third rushing threat with Kyler himself. That's the part for me. I go, this is a 3-headed rushing monster that is going to give a lot of teams problems. When I have them projected for last place, it's not because of their offense. I think they could put up points. I think they could beat, with this offense, any team on any day. We saw it. We saw it when they beat Philadelphia last year. Obviously, no one thought they were going to go in there and beat them, and they beat the Eagles, and they were the better team on the field that day. So they've got balance. I'm curious to see what Marvin Harrison looks like, but Kyler Murray's their obvious MVPs, the glue that holds it all together. You just saw it. There's statistical proof that you're like, okay, Kyler Murray's like in the maybe not the super first upper echelon of quarterbacks, right, all the way in the top tier, but man, I think he's still in that second tier, and I think people have forgotten how good he is.
Yeah, look, Kyler, I really hope that we see a fantastic season here for him, because I think that it's absolutely possible. If you go back to before he got hurt, that 2021 season, 43 big-time throws and just 14 turnover-worthy plays. That's while missing 3 games due to injury. He had an 8.0 big-time throw percentage. That's nuts. And he had his lowest turnover-worthy play percentage of 2.3 that season. A true MVP version of Kyler Murray. We have already seen it. I would love to see it, obviously, this season. You know, he's coming back. He had the ACL injury in 2022. Then he's coming back from the ACL injury in 2023. This year, I've got really high hopes for him. And I agree. I think that offense can really take off. So he is my offensive MVP. And then when it comes to the defensive side of things, just to continue the conversation, I have faith in Jonathan Gannon as their DC to at least elevate that group, right? Some new guys that are in there. It's another year of them being in the system. And I think that's going to be a little bit better by default, even if on paper they don't look that more imposing. I think that the group overall and the defense kind of coming together under Gannon is going to just be elevated. And that's, again, why I have them closer to that 500 number at 7-10. So who's your defensive MVP, though? While we're talking about defense, who you guys defensive MVP?
So going into this, I thought I was going to pick Budda Baker, and then I looked at some things, and I'm going to pick their other starting safety, Jalen Thompson. He had a career-high 77 coverage grade last year and 4 interceptions. And you talk about adjusting to all of the zone concepts in Jonathan Gannon's defense. He's really heavy zone coverage kind of defensive coordinator, right, and head coach calling defensive plays. Thompson really was the one that benefited from this. And look, they've got problems all over their defense, but at least they've got a young player along with the veteran at safety in Budda Baker who they can rely on that back end and those zone coverages not to give up the big plays. They got a lot to fix around him, but Thompson is not a guy they have to worry about on the back end. He had a breakout year last year, and I think you could very well argue he's their best defensive player on a really thin defense.
Yeah, I love the shout out there. They also have the rookie. Oh man, the name is
Taylor Demison.
Yes, Taylor Demerson, Taylor Demerson, who I loved watching him at the Shrine Bowl, and he obviously played great in the preseason as well. So it's a deep safety group there for that team. I'm going to go with Zaven Collins because, again, I think that somebody's got to get after the passer on this team, right? You talked about Darius Robinson. He's going to miss a little bit of time, but he wasn't exactly like a passer specialist anyways coming out of Missouri. He was more of a let's elevate the floor of what our defensive line is going to be because he could play a lot of different spots for you. Honestly, he could play anywhere from a 3 technique all the way to a 5 technique. He could play interior and he could play edge for you. But I think that Zaven Collins, career saver, moving him from off-ball linebacker to edge, and he always sort of had the size to be able to do it, but last year was his highest PFF grades of his career, playing as a full-time edge instead of as an off-ball linebacker. So, maybe another offseason. Now he's really working on some pass rush moves. He understands defensive line play a little bit more. Maybe we get the best season from him yet, but somebody has to get after the passer because both trenches are the big question marks for this team. If you don't think that the Cardinals are going to be good this season, I want to say you, and I'm not targeting you, I'm saying people out there. The big reason why would be the trenches. People would have major question marks with their defensive line or their offensive line. And that's why I think the most valuable player for them on the defense has to be Zaven Collins because their defensive line will basically go as he goes. If he's somebody who can get anywhere near double-digit sacks or hit double-digit sacks, now we might be talking about a totally different defensive ecosystem if that defensive line is more feared than we believe that it is right now on paper. So that to me is huge for him. And again, trending in the right direction, had his best grades as an NFL player last year at full-time edge. So we'll see how much better that he could be this upcoming season. What about a breakout player? Who's your breakout player?
I think it's last year's first-round pick, Paris Johnson Jr. He's moving to left tackle this year after playing right tackle last year, and you saw some struggles early, and you saw a lot of struggles from this team early, but you talk about a 50.1 overall grade in the first half of the season, and then 70.7 in the second half was just outside the top 30 among offensive tackles in that stretch, that second half. Look, he's a guy early in the year, just adjusting to the superstar guys that he had to play against. He had to play against Nick Bosa twice, and if you're playing right tackle, you're the guy who gets Nick Bosa. He's on that front side. Not easy. Several tough assignments early in the year and getting beat with a lot of inside moves, really trying to adjust his footwork, working back to the inside, just trying to pick everything up all at once, right? And look, for most rookies, the adjustment's hard, but for offensive tackles especially, man, rookie offensive tackles, I just feel bad for because you get thrown to the wolves against guys like Bosa and Myles Garrett and just all these freaks that we see off the edge every week. And I think he really started to adjust well and show his talent the second half of the year. I think switching back to left tackle where he played in college is going to be a big asset for him. We've talked about several guys, through these previews. So it's like, the position switch, I'm a little worried about it. You think about a guy like Talisi Fuaga who never played left tackle in college, but Johnson played left tackle in college. It's actually his natural position. And I think to go over there, they're going to have Jonah Williams at right tackle now. I think Johnson to be now the blindside protector and the momentum he picked up in the second half of last year. One, he's a huge, huge piece of this offense. This offense could level up even further if Johnson and this offensive line take another step forward because they weren't, the funny part is a lot of people think, the Cardinals offensive line is awful. It's really not. It wasn't that bad last year. And if Johnson takes another step forward, this could become a plus unit with him as their franchise left tackle. I really like Paris Johnson. I really like the progress he showed late last year. I think he's going to be an impact player for a long time.
Yeah, and I think Kyler Murray coming back was a big part of that, right? I think that it all kind of ties in together. Kyler Murray came back in Week 10, and if you take the Week 10 grades from their offensive line, prior to Week 10 and then after Week 10, they're night and day different, just as a unit. And I think that it's just sort of the trust that they have in Kyler Murray back there and him being able to operate the offense a little bit better. The offensive line isn't having to, hold on to their blocks as long because it's probably coming out a little bit quicker, a little bit more confidently with Kyler Murray back there. So I think it all kind of like works into itself. They definitely need Paris Johnson Jr. to step up, though. He has to be their best offensive lineman, and he has to sort of lead that offensive line with his play this season. My breakout player, anybody who knows Locked On it, or anybody who knows, the NFL Stock Exchange podcast knows that this was going to be my breakout player. It's Michael Wilson, their wide receiver. Big fan of Michael Wilson when he was coming out of the draft, and I felt like injuries really hurt his time when he was at Stanford. Obviously dealt with a shoulder injury last year as well, and so he's just kind of been beat up. But when he has been on the field, whether it's been at Stanford, whether it was at the Senior Bowl, whether it was last year, we saw some really good things from Michael Wilson. I think especially with Marvin Harrison Jr. now on that team and commanding sort of that wide receiver one attention, it's going to allow Michael Wilson to flourish, and we're going to see the best version of him that we have seen in quite a long time. He's a bigger dude, but he's stronger. He'll block his ass off. He's a very smart route runner. He understands releases. He knows how to attack different leverages and coverage. I just really love his game and how he approaches playing the wide receiver position, and I'm really hoping for a fully healthy year from him because I think if we get one, he is going to be a breakout candidate story, not just for the Cardinals, but I feel like throughout the league as well. So Michael Wilson is my guy there. Team's best rookie. Who are we going with?
Well, this is a fun draft class, right? You had 2 first-round picks. You had Darius Robinson was one of them. Trey Benson's a really good compliment at running back. You mentioned Dadrian Taylor-Demerson at safety, but look, it has to be Marvin Harrison Jr. Just has to be, right? He's a son of a Hall of Famer, 5th overall pick, gets to play with Kyler Murray in an offense. It's just a good fit for him as an offense, and he's a spectacular route runner. 92.3 receiving grade over the last 2 years at Ohio State, best in college football. It's Marvin Harrison. I don't really know any other way to put it other than just this guy. If he's as good as we think he is, he could put up 11, 12, 1,300 yards in his first year. In this offense, in a game with a team that is probably going to get in a lot of high-scoring games this year, considering the contrast from their offense and their defense. And you mentioned Kyler Murray and all the big-time throws. Look, Harrison is good enough that they felt good enough about him that he only played 3 snaps in the preseason, the entire preseason. They just said, you know what? Nope, we don't need you hurt. We need you. We know how good you are. We're gonna leave you out of it. We don't need you in game action. We'll see you week 1. We'll see you week 1 in Buffalo. They're playing in Buffalo. That could be a high-scoring game. But look, Harrison could be the key to this whole thing, right? Michael Wilson, really, really good player, could be a breakout player, but he fits better as a number 2. Greg Dortch in the slot, really good player with the ball in his hands. Trey McBride's another one, just emerged like all hell like the second half of last year. Trey McBride and the targets he gets and what he can do, loved him at Colorado State, love him last year with the Arizona Cardinals, but Marvin Harrison's the guy. He can be one of those guys, right? It's like he's supposed to be the prodigy. He's supposed to be one of those guys. Oh, the Cardinals might have a guy now like Jamar Chase, like Justin Jefferson, like one of those guys, like one of the elite receivers in football. Mm-hmm. Would it shock you that much if he had 100 catches and 1,200 yards this year?
No, especially if Kyler bounces back to closer to that MVP version that he was playing at before he got hurt. So, no, it would not shock me if he's able to do that because he's that caliber of a receiver. You brought up tight end, though, and I'm glad you did because I didn't want to both talk about Marvin Harrison Jr. I wanted to highlight a different rookie because this draft class is pretty vast for the Cardinals. Team's best rookie, I was tempted to say my boy Max Mitchell here, but playing corner as a rookie is just so difficult. So shout out to Max Melton. I think that he's going to be good, but Tip Ryman was such an interesting draft pick for me because Ryman never had more than 19 catches in a single season at Illinois. He had back-to-back seasons. In his last 2 seasons there, we had 19 catches. Barely had over 200 yards as his single-season career high when he was at Illinois. So he was really not a receiving threat. He goes to the combine. He shows off, okay, I'm more athletic than what my tape would probably suggest. Or sorry, my stats would probably suggest. You could see it on tape. He was much more of a blocker and a big-time player for them as a blocker in the slot, on the line of scrimmage. He was a really good blocking tight end for Illinois. And Arizona took him in the 3rd round. I could not believe it. I was so shocked. I liked Tip Ryman, and I was like, yeah, I'd take him somewhere early on day 3. And the Cardinals were like, all right, bet. We're going to take him in the 3rd round. So I think the reason why you do that is because, and I'm saying that he's going to be their best rookie, and obviously it's going to be Marvin Harrison Jr., but I think that they prioritize him in the draft because Ryman's presence is going to allow them to be even more flexible with Trey McBride as a receiver. When you go into 12 personnel sets, and I know that he's not the only tight end on this team. I know that there's some deep tight ends. Elijah Higgins is the other tight end there. But like, if you go into those two, let's just say 12 tight end sets or 12 personnel sets, two tight ends on the field. One of them is McBride, one of them is Ryman. You can make Ryman the one that's fully attached to the line of scrimmage, and then you can put McBride next to him. All of a sudden, you're putting all sorts of stress on the defense. Who is going to cover McBride? And then when Ryman is that sneaky, maybe it's just one catch a game, but it's the catch a game that's got to keep you honest. All of a sudden, now the linebackers got to pay attention to both of them, and McBride's already mismatching it of himself. So maybe not the best rookie, the most interesting rookie on this team to me is Ryman, and the flexibility that he gives Trey McBride in this offense for how he could be on the line of scrimmage. So that's how I see these rookies here.